It is May 5th, Cinco de Mayo. So our first order of business.
Ed, if I may, just as a point of order,
Yep.
there is a hideous paragraph at the beginning of our agenda.
Yep.
That we need to read so everyone understands what the protocol is for this evening.
Yep, understand.
Typically read down to line 4, because when you get to line 4, you've already done that 5 or 6 hours ago.
Okay.
So
line 4 or paragraph 4? In accordance with the governor's order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, general law, chapter 30A, section 20, relating to the 2020 novel coronavirus outbreak emergency, the May 5th, 2020 public meeting of the Falmouth Historical Commission shall be physically closed to the public to avoid group conference. Alternatively, public access to the meeting shall be provided in the following manner. The meeting will be televised via Falmouth Community Television. Real-time public comments can be addressed to the Historical Commission utilizing the Zoom virtual meeting software for remote access. The application will allow users to view the meeting and send a comment or question to the chair via the chat function. Zoom log instructions and meeting link to this specific meeting can be found on the following website, www.falmouthmass.us/historical commission. Additionally, public comments may be sent in advance. We're already past in advance, 5 hours to the meeting. Applicants, their representatives, and individuals with enforcement matters before the Historical Commission may appear remotely and not be required to physically be present. Applicants, their representatives, and individuals with enforcement matters before the Historical Commission may contact the Planning Department to arrange alternative means of real-time participation. If unable to use the Zoom virtual meeting software, documentary exhibits and/or virtual presentation should be submitted in advance of the meeting to the Planning Department, so they may be displayed for remote public access viewing. So the first order of business, I'm just going to go a little bit out of order because Tom Bott is on the agenda and he's going to give the audience and the public an update on the COVID-19 legislation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just as a matter to make it easier for people to follow along, they recommend that if you're not speaking, if you keep your on mute, there'll be less background noise and make it easier for everyone to hear. So we've had a number of discussions with town council regarding how we do business here in the age of COVID. So under the law, the board has the discretion to choose how much business they want to accomplish during the duration of the emergency. Essentially, the clock stops ticking for permit deadlines and doesn't resume until 45 days after the state of emergency. As we are always in our the planning office who supports the Historic Commission trying to move the ball along with projects and things like that, we do our very best to move these things along, but in the guise of having a shortage of personnel with Corey being out, there are some things that may be particularly technical that may be more difficult to move forward with. So the planning board, or I mean the Historic Commission, can elect to move forward with reviewing all applications in business at its previous rate, or reduced rate of applications or reviews as it finds technological restrictions make the sessions too long or unwieldy to do a full schedule, or do no applications at all. So those are your options. And as I said, we try to move the ball along with these things, and those things that the board is fairly or the commission is fairly comfortable with, those things hopefully we'll be able to move forward with. But some of the other things that are a bit more technical in the guise of 335 Shore Street, I believe is the address, where there's a bit more technical aspect of that, conferring with Corey, conferring with the building commissioner. Those things that require those additional personnel and those additional technical constraints are those things that the board can delay, not praying preferences to one or the other, but just the technical aspects of some of the applications, maybe to the point where the commission says, we're just going to have to let that one sit till we're back to being fully staffed. But other than that, I'm happy to be here as a resource for you folks. But with the circumstance we have with the people who are in the office, the people who are doing business, and there's an amazing amount of things going on, even though the building is closed. We'll do our best to support you, but obviously being a person down, we can't provide the aid and comfort to the Historic Commission that we typically have, and my apologies for that. Happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Tom. Any questions from the board on the parameters that we're operating under? Okay, so why don't we just dive into the agenda? The first application number 2020, which is Vinkin Inc. at 75 Locust Street, which was assigned. That application has been withdrawn, so we will not be reviewing that this evening. The second application number 2021, Alan Cordes at 78 Main Street. Is Alan on the call?
I believe his attorney is.
Okay.
Matt Terry.
Understood. Just promoting him now.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone.
There we go.
And if you could also elevate Joanne Gosser and Mike Mcgrath if they're on. Terrific.
Is it Mick or Mike?
Mike Mcgrath.
Okay. I don't see Mike yet unless he raises his hand.
Okay. Well, I can get started if the commission's ready.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. All right. Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission. My name is Matt Terry, and I'm an attorney with the law firm of Klauer in Falmouth. I represent Alan Courts and Martha's Vineyard Savings Bank, the owner and the tenant, respectively, of 78 Main Street, and the applicants in this matter. With me tonight are project architect Joanne Gosser of Synergy MV, and I've just been told that project engineer and surveyor Mike Mcgrath of Holmes & Mcgrath is having some technical issues, but he is trying to join us. The applicants are seeking to install a code-compliant handicap ramp. No handicap ramp currently exists at the property, and the applicants are seeking to make the building legally accessible to handicapped persons. The proposed location of the ramp, which we'll discuss in more detail in a minute, is toward the rear of the existing building, tucked into a recess along the side facade. The ramp will be minimally visible to invisible from the public way. The property is partially within the Main Street Historic District. The ramp will be constructed with materials to match existing materials, including mahogany decking, molded cedar railings, and matching balusters and skirt boards. The applicants also seek to install a new aluminum and glass door in front of the existing front door, which will remain intact and will not be disturbed. Finally, the applicants intend to replace an existing side door with a recessed ATM, which will not be visible from the public way, and replace an existing rear-facing door with a window. The recessed ATM will be accessible from the new handicap ramp as required by law. The property consists of an approximately 0.8 acre lot with a 2.5-story commercial and residential Victorian building. The building was constructed in approximately 1858, according to the assessor's records, and has been renovated substantially over the years pursuant to applicable permits. The guidelines of the Historical Commission state that the goal of the commission is not to stop, but rather to manage and encourage change, encouraging compatible new construction. These proposed renovations, which I'll discuss in a little bit more detail, will make the building handicapped accessible to individuals increasing its usefulness while maintaining the historic exterior and blending the renovations and keeping with the nature of this historic district. I just want to share screen, and I'll show you a few items. So just to start with, this is the photo from the corner of Main Street and the property line. So if you get a sense for where we're talking, the handicap ramp is going to go behind this existing staircase here. Let me know at any time if you have any problem seeing anything that I'm sharing. And we'll head out back toward Catherine Lee Bates to show you a plan. This is the existing conditions, just so that you get a sense for that. The ramp is going to go right here. And let me see if I can pull up. Just bear with me for a minute. Just trying to pull up the proposed. Here we go. Okay, so you now see here the proposed ramp.
Oh,
Which, sorry?
got locked out. Oh, there we go. Okay. I got
Okay.
knocked out
Yeah.
of the meeting for a second. Okay.
So you can see Main Street here. This is the paved driveway. So this is approximately where I took the photo show looking down the driveway. So the ramp is going to come in here. And I'll switch over to the architecturals in a minute, but they'll have access to the building here. Martha's Vineyard Savings Bank is planning on doing office and deposit only receipts here at this location. It's not going to be a full service bank branch, but you'll see here that they're installing a handicap parking space right at the base of the ramp. The contractor is going to complete a concrete surface that runs right from the space to the ramp, and you'll be able to use the ramp to access the building and the ATM this way. So let me just pull up a couple other pictures. So this photo shows if you wouldn't mind elevating Mike Mcgrath, or Kevin Klauer rather. He should be one of the participants, and I think Mike Mcgrath is with him. So you can see here, this section right here is where the handicap ramp is going to be added onto. These stairs are staying put. This is Main Street and the town green here. This door is remaining where it is. The ATM is going to go approximately in this location.
Sorry, the ATM.
Oh, go ahead. Yes.
It goes actually where this window is right here. So not over here. We're not cutting a new hole. Can you put that picture back up?
Thought maybe this one might be more
Yeah,
helpful.
no, not that one. The one you just had. Sorry.
All right. That's all right.
So right at the top of these stairs here,
That's it
there's a
here.
window to your left. That's where the ATM is going to go, right
Yeah.
there. So we're not cutting a new hole into the building, and then we're planning on moving this window, if we can remove it, okay, and putting it on the opposite side where there currently is a door that we want to make a window. Matt can maybe show you that either in a photograph or in the plans, but it's not our intention to cut a new hole for the ATM.
Thanks, John. That's helpful.
Yep.
Let me see if I can pull up the elevations. Okay, so this is the architectural. What Joanne was speaking to is the ATM location here.
Oh, Matt, the ATM is actually right here is where we moved it. We didn't, yeah, I see the plans that you have. We had a revised set of plans, Matt, that I
Okay.
had sent to you. And the ATM is at the top of the stairs here, not in this new hole right here.
I see. Understood. And here are the elevations for the ramp itself. You'll see it goes from 20.7 to I think it's 23. Let's see where.
23, 21.
Yeah. So it's a 1 to 12 slope. And with respect to the materials, you can see mahogany decking, mahogany rails, the balusters, and the side trim to match existing. So I think that's, by way of introduction, the basics of the proposal. We believe that allowing for these renovations using designs, colors, textures, and materials in keeping with the nature of the historic district will significantly improve the property from both a functional and aesthetic perspective. These changes are certainly consistent with the general character of other buildings and structures in the vicinity of the applicant's building and well within the purview of the commission to approve. I'm happy to address any questions that the commission may have at this time. And thank you for your consideration of this matter.
Thank you, Matt. Okay. Does the commission have any questions? Although I just wanted to ask a question about where that ATM is going. You said it was going into the window.
Yes.
So although technically, it's not visible from a public way, I mean, just a question to keep the integrity of the building. Are you going to maintain the trim, that window trim that's there, and just in fact slide the ATM into that?
As best we can. We'll probably have to infill a little bit because the ATM will be a smaller opening.
Well, that's okay, but you'll still maintain the integrity of the trim, the window trim.
Sure. Yep.
And someday someone wanting to restore that.
Sure.
Back. Yeah. Okay. And the columns that are there on that little side porch, there's I think 3 or 4 columns. Those will remain as
Those
well.
stay. Yep.
Okay.
So you can't really see it from Main Street, right? And you can't see it from Catherine Lee Bates Road.
Not really. You can see
Yeah.
it a little bit from Main Street from the side, but very little.
And the pressure treated balusters and the pressure treated skirtboarding is what's there already.
I think that's what's there already. It was really
Yeah.
hard to tell in the pictures. It looks like it's pressure treated that's been stained to look like new wood. It would be the desire to let it weather gray so that it looks like the rest of the building rather than to have it look like brand new shingles all the time.
Yeah.
So I called it out to match the existing, but I think we'd rather stain it a gray if it is stained, in order so that it matches the existing shingles.
Stain the pressure treated?
Yes, because I think that's what's there now. If
Yeah.
this picture that Matt showed, Matt, can you pull up that side? Do you have a side picture? Or Well, I can show this one. Well, I don't have a, but this is what, yeah, there, that's good. So it looks like pressure treated wood to me, but it's hard to tell. And it looks like they've stained it to look like new wood, so it stays that color. It would be our desire to stain it a gray so it more blends in with the shingles once they're weathered.
Well, it looks funny because half of the rails going up the stairs are painted white.
Painted, right.
The cap is white, and then you've got pressure treated balusters and skirt board. So it's like a amalgam of different finishes.
Right.
I'm not sure I would just paint everything white,
Yeah, that's fine too.
because that's more in keeping with historic than have
Sure.
pressure treated, stained pressure treated.
Yep. I think that's fine.
So you could paint the whole thing white, and the skirt underneath and everything.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would look better too, and it would look like it was always there.
Yeah, it looks a little. It looks like the combination of the pressure treated and the white looks funny. I would just paint everything white.
Yeah.
And leave the
Good point.
decking natural mahogany.
Sure.
Yeah. Good point. Any other questions? I went by, I drove through there and looked through, I mean, the way you've got that tucked in there, it looks great. It looks like it belongs there. You know, you did a great job in fitting it in and matching to the existing detailed trims of the building.
Thank you.
So can I have a motion on this application?
I'll make a motion that we accept the application as proposed, except for the deck components, except for the decking will be painted white, including the skirt board and the balusters.
Have a second?
Second.
I'm gonna take a roll call by person just so we know exactly what we're doing. Christian Vale?
I'm in favor. Well, I just made the motion. Yeah, I'm in favor.
Okay, okay. Annie Dean?
Yes, I'm in favor.
Kara Foley? Kara is muted. And,
I'm in favor.
okay. Lee Drescher
I'm in favor.
and Ed Ed's in favor. Unanimous.
Thank you
We're all
very
set.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Much
you.
appreciated.
Our next application is, let's get out of this. So I think that's our last certificate of appropriateness application. The next agenda items are demolition delays. So we have a continuation of a demolition delay waiver request for 100 Dillingham Avenue. Is there anyone here representing 100 Dillingham? No? Leon? No, all right, let's just pass that for now. The next.
There was
demolition-
apologies. There was somebody raising their hand. I believe that might be who you were looking for.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Howard,
Okay.
I just want to, how are you today, sir? I haven't been involved with this since the last hearing, and I don't know if Mr. Pincinel had planned on attending tonight or not. I do believe that there was, I believe he at least scheduled to meet with Christian at the site, as well as the interested party whose name is escaping me, who had come to the last hearing.
Caleb?
Caleb, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know the outcome of that meeting. I didn't want this to pass without, without comment, just because if we have to request a continuance, then we certainly will. But I don't know if Mr. Pincinel had planned on attending this evening or not.
I spoke with him today. He called me and I made him aware of the meeting. I told him how it was going to be orchestrated, and I asked him to contact the planning department just if he had any questions about how to get in and how to do this, that he should contact the planning office about how to do this. So I don't know what happened.
If we could put this aside for a moment, I'll see if I can reach him by phone.
Sure.
And I did promote up someone. I don't know their name. They have their username is Craws. Are you able to hear us?
On mute.
Osford.
Sorry, could you speak up again?
Yes, Caleb Rostron.
Oh, there's Caleb. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Caleb, the applicant is not, doesn't appear to be on the call right now, so we're just going to wait and see if we can get a hold of him, okay?
Okay. I do have a, hopefully I can make this work right, a document that he emailed me yesterday. And it shows his proposed, the architect's proposed memorial to the Nimrod and Nimrod history, utilizing some of the elements of the building.
Yeah, I saw that.
2 discussions with him, one in person and one via email. And
Hey, Caleb, can I interrupt you? And can we just wait to see if we can get him on the call? That would be much
sure,
more
I'm happy to.
If he can get on the call, then we can all be on the same page at the same time.
Perfect.
All right, thank you. Tom, I got a question from a viewer. Are they capable of asking any questions if there's someone that's watching? Tom Cox?
Yeah, so if anybody has questions, the chat function has traditionally been the easiest way for them to submit questions, at least while watching live.
Okay. I hope the audience heard that. Okay, thank you.
And just for clarity, if you ask for Tom or Thomas, we answer to different names. Thomas is the one who knows what Thomas is the one who knows what he's doing. I'm the one who just has a bow tie on.
Thanks for that clarification. All right, let's go to
nice touch.
The second application for demolition delay, which is 19 Associates Road. Is there someone here to speak to that request? Greg Jones?
It looks like he has his hand promoting him up now.
Okay, while you're getting him up, just a clarification for the board, just as a reminder, because we don't do these that often. When it's a demolition delay waiver, which is different than a demolition within the historic district. When there is a demolition in the historic district, the commission is involved in reviewing the replacement structure, and that's part of our process. That's not the same process with a demolition delay waiver for a structure outside the historic district. We are not necessarily involved with the replacement structure. They can show it certainly and as a courtesy, but that's not part of our process, is to approve the replacement process as well. So there's a little bit different process here. What we're doing is approving that the delay can be waived. We are not stopping the demolition. All we are doing is stopping the delay, the 12-month delay. So just a clarification, especially for the public as well. Tom?
Yes, I wanted to say that they did come back to the planning board with a site plan, and the planning board does design review outside of the historic districts. And the planning board did approve a revised site plan that essentially was going to try to recreate the structure in place rather than try to make the additions prior to. So
okay.
It's what the board approved.
Okay, thank you. All right, is Greg on the call?
Yeah, he should be coming up in a second. Had some issues promoting him up.
Thank you.
All right, Greg, you should be up if you want to try unmuting yourself.
There we go.
I'm back.
Okay.
Okay, I'm back. I just have to catch my breath. Internet's a little unstable here. Am I on?
Yep, you're on.
You're on.
Okay, thank you. So we're talking about a house, 19 Associates Road.
Yep.
Built in 1898. Builder, according to the Form B from Mass Historic, was Lewis B. Smith. Original owner was a fellow named Walter G. Cotton, who was the president of the American Tube Works in Boston. He owned the house for about 5 years and sold it to the Adams family in 1903, who then in 1911 sold it to the Richards family. Descendants of that family owned the house until my clients, the Sewells, purchased it in November of 2019. As a result of the historic structure survey that the town commissioned with the Boston Archaeological Lab, it was placed on the significant buildings list in, I believe it was September of 2019. It was listed as a contributing structure to the National Register eligible Coit Historic District. As most of you probably know, it's a shingle style structure. And that style is characteristic of a lot of homes found in the seaside of New England. It has irregular massing, wood shingles, lots of use of natural materials, the wood shingles, wood trim, stone foundation elements. And it's characteristic of a lot of the homes built on Coit as well. So this particular house retains its wood shingles, still has some of its decorative features, including columns that flank the entrance on the second story, and some decorative wood corbels that support visually the protruding portico adjacent to the entrance. Over time, the wood shingles on the roof have been replaced with asphalt shingles, and a lot of the original double hung windows have also been replaced with vinyl replacement windows. So in any case, it is part of the fabric of Coit, built when the island was developed at the turn of the century. So when my clients purchased it, their intent was to have a home that their family could enjoy for years to come. It would be a home that could accommodate their family over the summers, but also into the off season as well. They had a home up until recently on Old Dock Road, which was primarily a summer home, had also been used throughout the year as it was built to accommodate all season use. The home at Associates Road was never updated or winterized to allow for year-round use. So as we looked at the property, it was obvious we'd need to upgrade it to accommodate full-time use. So our efforts originally, after they purchased the property last fall, was to look at what needed to be done to the existing house to make it suitable for year-round use and modern living. We also looked at what needed to be done to the bathrooms, the kitchen, all of which dated primarily to the house's original construction. So the Sewells put together a team, an architect, myself, and a builder, Ralph Cataldo of Cataldo Custom Homes. Ralph has extensive experience with renovating older homes, as well as building new homes, several of which are on Coit Island. So as part of our effort, we brought in members of all the major trades: plumbers, electricians, house movers, carpenters, framers, all with the intent of looking at the structure, figuring out what needs to be done to the property. So we brought these folks in, and I believe I've submitted a brief memo from two of the major trades, the plumbing trade and the electrical trade, who came through the house, reviewed what was there, and gave us their recommendations. So the brief memo described some of their conclusions. Pretty straightforward. None of the electrical or plumbing components in the house meet the modern code in any way. And as standing, some of the electrical items represent a significant fire hazard, given how it's been jury-rigged over the years. So knob and tube wiring exists throughout the house. As I say, a lot of connections have been jury-rigged over the years to get an outlet here, a light over there, and in some of the photos you can see some of the cobbled together components of lighting and electrical outlets. What the plumber found was that there's really no vent lines for any of the plumbing throughout the property. Most of the plumbing consists of galvanized steel pipe, which after 100 years is corroding and rotting, also does not meet code. So the reports themselves speak for themselves. Pretty much everything just in those two trades alone needs to be replaced. One of the issues with that is, of course, once you try and replace all that stuff, you've got to take all the plaster out from all the walls and ceilings throughout the building to get access to the stud cavities. So that's an issue we'd have to address. In addition to those two major items, if you've been to the house, you know there's no basement under it. You'll also see there's virtually no crawl space. And even in some places, particularly under the sunroom, there's no crawl space at all. The flooring is sitting directly on dirt. The crawl space that exists is a maximum of 18 inches in areas. So all the wood framing can't be assessed to see just how the house is made. But a quick look around the property and where you can stick your head in, you can see, and the pictures also show this, various elements that have been added to the foundation. A post here, a couple concrete blocks there, that over time people have put in to keep the place somewhat stable. So in addition to the trades, I also spoke with a building mover. Some of you may know of them, Gary Sylvester Building Moving. We wanted to talk to him about, what it would take to lift this house up, assess the structure that we couldn't see, and lower it back down on a new foundation. So there's a couple issues that came up as a result of those conversations. Long story short, it's a challenging house to lift, primarily because we can't see the structure until you start digging underneath it. So we can't come up with a terribly accurate number until you dig a big hole and inspect the whole place. Because of the house's construction, it's a long, rambling house with a lot of different pieces. It more than likely would have to be cut into 3 pieces, each of those pieces lifted individually. So long story short, when he was pushed to give sort of a budget to help us get in our mind what we were looking at, he felt we were looking at a minimum of $150,000 to $200,000 to raise the house and then lower it back down on a foundation. The foundation would be a separate item. So we looked at that sort of stuff in our efforts to figure out just what can we do with the place. Also to be noted, over the wintertime, a pipe ruptured, froze. The only way to get access to it, and if you've been to the house, you've seen the trenches, was to dig trenches underneath the house to get access to the pipe that froze so that it could be repaired. So that's going to be a constant problem. The other issue that's evident when you start walking through the house is because of the foundation issues, the house has settled differentially over the years. A lot of windows don't sit squarely in their openings. A lot of doors also don't sit squarely in their openings, making the windows difficult to open and close because they're not square and plumb. And a lot of the doors, when you swing them open, drag across the floor because the floor is not quite level. So another piece of the effort was one of Ralph Cataldo's crew is a framing fellow. He's a project supervisor. He assessed the structure of the roof, the floor framing, at least that which we could see. The roof framing is made of 2x6s. Structurally, in today's code, you'd probably use 2x10s. But the problem with the 2x6s, beyond their questionable structural integrity, is you can't get enough insulation in their depth to meet the modern building code. So we'd have to somehow deepen the cavity to get adequate insulation in the roof. The floor structure is a little more challenging. They seem to be made up of maximum 2x8 members. You can glean that information by measuring the depth between the ceiling and the floor above. So we're guessing there's maximum 2x8s in the floor structure. Those 2x8s, we don't know how far apart they're spaced, 16 inches, 24 inches, but we do know they span in some cases up to 14 feet. Modern house to span 14 feet, you'd be looking at 2x10s or 2x12s. So we'd be looking at a project of augmenting the structure that we're guesstimating are 2x8s. First floor, we're assuming they're 2x8s as well. Again, long spans, a lot of sagging, a lot of deflection. So those are some of the initial findings. The other sort of obvious things, there's no insulation whatsoever in the house. There's no basement or crawl spaces. The fireplaces were inspected. There's no flues in the fireplaces, no ash pits. And it's questionable the amount of clearance between the combustibles and the fireboxes. So that would have to get further inspection. More than half the windows have been replaced. So our original efforts for the first 5 months since the clients bought the property were to look at what needed to be done to the existing structure to stabilize it and bring it up to code. This is before we even get into, are the rooms in the right place? Did the kitchen have a view? That sort of stuff. So we worked pretty hard as soon as the folks bought the property to figure out how can we save this place? What can we do to bring it to life for these folks? But I think in the end, our conclusion was that given all that we've seen and the amount of stuff that we haven't been able to see, given what's hidden, we think the best course of action is to tear the house down and build a new one. We've tried to look at all the alternatives. We've brought in a salvage company who've assessed the artifacts that are salvageable. We'd like to either reuse them in a new home, or donate them, or somehow salvage them for future use, so that the things that are salvageable are just not tossed away. So, we're thinking that this is our best course. As I say, we spent some time looking at alternatives. We're not sure that an additional 6 or 12 months' time investigating alternatives will yield anything different. So we're here to ask for the commission blessing to waive the delay. And I know that we have Ralph Cataldo, the builder, who might want to be called up, and both Lisa and Edgar Sewells, the owners of the property, are also on call, ready to answer questions if you guys have any. And certainly I'm here to answer any questions you might have. So thank you.
Does any of the commissioners have any questions of the presentation of the condition of the building and the justification for demolition now? Just to let me remind you that the applicant is currently under a 12-month delay. After 12 months, they are free to demolish the building. What they're asking for is a waiver to demolish the building sooner than later. So it's not an issue of whether they can or can't demolish the building. It's a question of when will they be able to demolish the building. So just I wanted to clarify that point of view for that differentiates a house that's in the historic district. So is there any questions from the board members that they'd like to?
I have some comments.
Okay.
I happen to be a neighbor, and I did see your plans for a new house. I am very disappointed that you do have to take it down. I am next to a house that was my grandmother's house that was kept and restored. And I see nothing in the new plans that replicates that beautiful, beautiful roof, that beautiful cross hip roof that goes way, way up. This looks like a very long house, and I would just hope that you might try to replicate in some way the house that existed. I'm sorry for the phone. And that's my comment. I'm just really sorry to see you taking it down.
Well, I certainly will speak to the clients, and we're happy to take advice, discussion about thoughts you guys might have about the proposed project. We're at the early stages. So again, we looked at a number of options, and we've come up with an initial schematic of what meets the client's needs, but it's certainly not set in stone. So we're sympathetic to anything people might add.
Yeah.
I just want to add that I personally think it was a very thorough job in terms of understanding the existing structure. Probably one of the more thorough reviews that we've had. And I think the new structure, although it's not in our purview to comment on that, as Ed said, the shingle style and some of the elements of it are actually very much in keeping with the existing building. So I tend to disagree. I think it's a nice looking building.
I'd just like to say that I really appreciate the effort that you put into looking into all the different possibilities for the building. I've lived in old homes before and I've rented them. I understand all the complexities you're talking about. And I don't think we ought to see homeowners come to us and have really tried everything or looked at everything. So I just want to express my appreciation for that.
Thank you.
Pardon the interruption, Mr. Chairman. There is a chat question from Barbara W. I don't know if you had the chats open or not.
Sorry, I didn't.
That's right.
Yeah.
They're just asking, has any member of the HC done a site visit?
Okay.
I have.
I have also, and I've actually been in the house, so as a guest at a, so I'm not really familiar with the house. I just know of the house.
I drove by as well.
Yeah. So I think looking at the house, obviously you don't get certainly the perspective of a thorough, investigation, I'll call it an autopsy of the house, into the deepest level, what's really going on below the surface. And to me, that would be certainly a key to the justification of whether a house can be restored, especially an older house, historic house, and whether it needs to be replaced and start all over again. And like Andy said, I appreciate the effort that you've gone through. It's not simply, sometimes you get people that like, oh, I just want the property. I don't care about the house. You obviously did a due diligence to try to save the house and look at all aspects of it. And I mean, it's hard to argue with the rationale of the amount of work with really still no guarantees that you're going to have a house that's habitable on modern standards after you even did all that extra work. So I agree with Andy. I give you a lot of credit, Greg, for doing the research and calling the right resources together, and to the owner for doing this due diligence too. Certainly as a historical commission, appreciate every effort to save the houses from the past, because they are important. They are important to the neighborhood and to the neighbors. Just as a note, I did get a letter from a neighbor, Joanna Hutchinson.
Harrison.
Sorry?
Harrison.
Sorry, thank you. I did get a letter in support of the project, the replacement, in support of the Sewell's effort to replace the house. So just for the record, I wanted to get that into the record.
And I believe, hi, sorry, this is Bart. So thank you all first of all for your time and this process. There also should be a letter that was sent by Larry Fish, who is an abutter, as well as Rob Smith, who's an abutter, who are both supportive.
I didn't receive them yet. They
I think
it
was sent to Corey, so but I heard up front he may be out. So
right. So okay.
And also, the Zate says Lulu, who's been the point person, and she and I have built a nice relationship. My wife has known her for many, many years, is supportive as well. As I told her, and we spent a lot of time with Greg and with other folks looking at how we could restore the house. And at the end of the day, she was the first to say up front it would be outrageously expensive to do anything at this house. And when I spoke to her 2 weeks ago, she was supportive.
Thank you.
And it's been in their house for over 100 years. So. Yeah, it says a lot.
And any other questions or comments from the board? Anything from the public? So I'll make a motion that we approve the waiver of the demolition delay.
I'll second.
All in favor? Annie?
Aye. Yes.
Kara?
No,
Aye.
Lee?
I'm sorry, I can't approve of this.
Okay, so you're voting no. Christian?
Aye, in favor.
And Ed, aye. So we have 4 approve and 1 opposed. April. You're all set?
Thank you for your time. I appreciate your understanding.
Thank you.
Great, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
The next demolition delay application we have is at 10 Crown Avenue. I don't know if is there anyone here to represent 10 Crown Avenue? Oh, Kevin. Okay.
Mr. Chair. And if we could elevate Jill Neubauer as well, please. And I just want to, before I start with this, make the point that Mick Lahart is as an attendee, and he is he'll be speaking for the Nimrod project.
Okay.
So, may I begin?
Yes, please.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. For the record, my name is Kevin Klauer. I'm an attorney with Klauer Law Firm here in Falmouth, and I represent the applicants, John Mannix and Carmel A. Shields. Although we did apply as 691 to 693 Heath Street LLC, that property's since been deeded to them in their individual names. They are the owners of 10 Crown Avenue, and they purchased this property in October of 2018. The property contains 2 dwellings and is situated at the corner of Crown Avenue and Forest Avenue at the top of Falmouth Heights. The front house on the lot is Victorian in style and appearance, and was formerly part of the Oak Crest Inn. Smaller structure at the rear of the lot along Forest Avenue is the subject of tonight's hearing. The address is listed on the list of historically significant structures. It wasn't entirely clear to me if that would apply to both structures on the lot, so we thought it appropriate to apply. As to the smaller structure that we are discussing, it's unclear exactly when it was built, although it is clear that it's been at the location for some time. The assessor's records reflect 1982. However, a 1988 special permit from the Zoning Board of Appeals indicates that both structures have been there for a number of years, and that seems to be supported by some of the documentation. Regardless, the applicants are seeking to make improvements to that specific structure, and a review of it quickly revealed that the existing foundation was in terrible condition, as well as a number of other structural issues. The structure itself, and I'm going to share my screen just to show some pictures here. The structure itself is shown in front of you as a smaller structure, and what you see to the left of it is the larger, kind of more Victorian in style structure at the front of the lot. But the smaller structure itself doesn't appear to have much historic value in and of itself, either aesthetically or from a design perspective, largely due to the insufficient foundation. And we did provide a few pictures of that foundation, which, as you can see, is supported with stacked cinder blocks and 2x4s and boards wedged underneath sill beams against the dirt floor. It's been determined that the best course of action is to propose to raise and rebuild the structure. And though you've said it's not entirely part of the application, I do want to say that what has been proposed is similar in style and design with both the Victorian dwelling at the front of the lot, as well as many nearby properties. And it's compatible with the nature of the area. The architect, Jill Neubauer, is here this evening, and she's prepared to speak relative to the existing and proposed structures and styles. But given the condition of the structure, the appropriately designed proposal, and I believe that a waiver of the demolition delay bylaw would be appropriate. After Ms. Neubauer's had a chance to speak, I would be happy to address any questions that the board may have, and I thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
Good evening. Yes, hi, good evening.
Hi.
Hi. We were hired by the Mannixes to renovate the existing cottage, as Kevin had said, and the goal was to design a cottage that complemented the existing dwelling, which is a very nice Victorian home, and the other homes on the circle that are some of the sweetest Victorian homes in the Heights.
Yeah.
And so the existing cottage is not consistent with that local vernacular because of its massing. It has a low pitch ranch roof and 4 straight plain walls. And the Victorian dwellings, along with all the other homes in that area, have steeper pitch roofs. And the envelopes have characters, you know, that have features such as bays and dormers. So we believe that the design for the new cottage pairs beautifully with the character of the main home and the homes of the neighborhood. And then, as Kevin has stated, when we became very familiar with the conditions of the existing dwelling that we were going to try and renovate, that foundation condition made it not possible to work with that existing building. And so it's for us to move forward with the project, we need to tear that building down and build a new, what we think is a sweet Victorian cottage on that same footprint.
I can't disagree with you. I mean, I'm certainly, I didn't understand that I'll call it an accessory building. And I agree. I looked back at the list of significant buildings for some indication as to whether that building was called out, and it wasn't. So my assumption would have been obviously that it was listed on the list at the time because of the main building, not certainly because of the accessory building. So I agree with you. That would be my assessment as well. Like I said, we don't look at the design, but certainly it enhances the main building, which is ideal for us from a historic commission perspective. It enhances not only the house, but I think it enhances the neighborhood, which you're right, is really a unique neighborhood in the heights of the homes that are still there. And hopefully doing something like this is a reminder to the neighbors as well to preserve that look rather than try to change it. So I think it's a great move in the right direction, what you're trying to do myself. Any other comments from the board?
I just want to say that the homeowners are really fortunate to have you working on the project, Jill. And I know you're going to do something really sweet, like you said, and appropriate, and increase everybody's property value around there. So
yeah.
Thank you, Anne.
Great to hear this. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, Ed, I concur. I agree. It's going to enhance the property, and that existing accessory structure doesn't have any sort of significance. So I agree with both Annie and with Ed.
I would agree as well.
Yeah, but like I said, I think importantly, I think it enhances the neighborhood, and that's really important for us to maintain the integrity of that neighborhood, because it's not a historic district, so it's always in jeopardy. So doing something like this only reinforces the value of the neighborhood as well, which I think is very important. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, so I'll make a motion that we approve the waiver of the demolition delay at 10 Crown Avenue.
I'll second it.
I'll take a roll. Annie?
I'm in favor.
Tara?
In favor.
Lee?
In favor.
Christian?
In favor.
Ed? In favor. So it's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
The one last thing on our agenda, and I'm going to defer to you, Christian. I guess we didn't get. Let me just go back to 100 Dillingham. I guess we didn't get the applicant here.
Mcgrath is one of the applicants.
Oh, okay. All right, good. So we can go back to that.
He should be coming up in a second. I did promote him up.
Hello.
Oh, there we go.
All right, Mick, we can see. You just have to unmute yourself. You should be all set.
Let me see. Unmute. Okay, am I in?
Yep.
How are you?
All right. I was not at the original hearing in March, so I'm going to defer to Christian, ask you to take the lead on this application, Christian, since you were involved in the original discussion and some of the parameters that were discussed at that meeting, if you don't mind.
Yeah. So the way it was left, and certainly anyone that that was at the meeting should correct me, but I think that the sentiment was that everyone agreed that the building needs to come down, that it's not salvageable. However, there may be or may not be some historically important aspects of the build or important items in the building still or there may be a need to further document those important architecturally significant, historically significant aspects. And so the decision was made at the last meeting that we would do a site walk, both myself and Caleb Rostrom, who was on this call earlier. I don't know if he's still here. To try to at least identify anything that's salvageable. Prior to the site walk, the meeting was canceled because of the applicant's concerns over insurance and having the public basically in the building, given the dilapidated state of the building. So the site walk did not occur. So beyond that, I'm not sure where it is in terms of documenting or trying to identify if there's anything important in there left. I know the applicant has sent out a proposed sketch of it looks like some sort of tribute to the building that the architect did, but like I said, the meeting was canceled, so I'm not really sure what their current plan is.
Hello? Should I talk?
Go ahead.
Okay, I didn't even know I was going to have to talk, so you'll have to bear with me here. We had actually, I'm Michael Ahard, I represent Pincenol Builders, and we had presented to Caleb and other people from the town or whatever, a stand that we would build, and we would take parts of the Nimrod that we felt were historically significant, or that you guys felt were historically significant, and build a kind of a tribute, I suppose, for the want of a better word. We do have a Connex box on site, and our intent was to go in, take out, with people from historical, and take out the things that they wanted to save and put them in that container for 6 or 8 or 9 months or whatever, and people could come by, or we could build incorporate it into the tribute to the Nimrod. And that was kind of what we came up with. The issue is the building is really unsafe. Not only, it's unsafe even for us to put our workers in there. We somewhat inherited it like 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, from the previous owner, and it really has dilapidated, and we've given all the information that I believe engineering wise and architecturally wise that needs to be given, and our intent is to build it back exactly as it looked before. That's it.
Yeah, so what is in the building now, or has it been documented? Because this was the concern of the public, and I'm just echoing what is in there that we think is still significant historically.
I believe
and has that been documented or further kind of vetted? Because I think that was where we left off, that we were going to do that, and I'm not sure that has been done yet. So I'm just following up on what was discussed at the prior meeting with the applicant.
I'm not sure if Caleb wants to weigh in on that. My background is historical restoration. I know the things that I believe are worth saving, but maybe somebody else needs to weigh in on that.
I met once with Mick and Leon out at their office. What they've proposed to me is that they would put that container on the property, that they would try and save as much as they could of the historical nature. They did supply me with some existing photographs of how they found it. Some of the historic beams were removed and laid on the floor, probably by Warren Dalton. In subsequent times with the people, the vagrants that have gotten in there, they have done some damage to some of those beams. But I firmly believe that Pisano is going to do its best to try and pull the elements out that can be repurposed and used as part of that display board. As I showed you earlier in the meeting, they sent me a diagram of it, and it won't show up too well, but it's a fairly nice looking little piece of that will go out in the parking lot in front and serve as a discussion point with utilizing some of the historical elements that are removed from the building. So unfortunately, I am the opinion that the building has to come down. It sat for too long, and it's a shame, but that, I looked at it. I haven't had a chance to be able to get in it. I offered to go in with hold harmless agreements and safety equipment, but Pisano's insurance company said no go. So at this point, I'm just standing on the outside looking in. So they have supplied me with some photographs very nicely. They sent from their cell phones this afternoon, and I looked at them, and that's about where I sit at this point.
Okay, am I correct in understanding you said that you feel fairly confident that they will pull out what they can and put it aside? Is that accurate?
I honestly do. I was very impressed with both of them. They were very forward, up front. I didn't feel that there was any, spin put on anything. I don't feel that they were trying to hide things from me. They were very open and positive. They were the ones that came up. I was going to suggest putting a trailer or a storage container on the property, and they beat me to it. They suggested it before I did. So.
Okay, so I think it sounds like you're in a good place with this, and we might be at the best juncture that we can to make a decision. I want to inform Ed, you weren't there. We had maybe 5 or 6 people. I see, Tom, just let me finish. There's 5 or 6 people at the meeting who actually begged us to move forward with this, getting this demolished. They live in the Dillingham Place. We had Laura Reckford from the Art Center say, she spoke from the depth of her heart about how shameful it was that the building has gotten to the state it has, but also saying that the building needs to come down. It's a real hazard. And so we actually had more people there asking us to move it forward. So if Caleb feels like he's got the best that he can with property owner, I think we need to get the building torn down. I think we need to approve.
I was on the committee. I agree that the building needs to come down. They did send a little plan around, and I guess rather than a monument outside, I would really love to see some of the basic artifacts incorporated in like an entrance hall. And there was like a wonderful fireplace, and I would like to see it as part of the building, maybe an entrance hall rather than some little thing outside. But
the building's going to be a private building, so if anything that's inside is not going to be visible to the public. So I would think that anything that we want the public to see should be on the outside.
I don't know. This just strikes me as a little hokey. What are you going to put out there and whatever it is? But...
Well, let me just say, I mean, I think I agree. I wasn't at the first meeting, but I agree. I think the issue of whether the building is going to be demolished is a foregone conclusion. I think what we just want to do is satisfy the people in the town who are concerned. Are we losing any historic value items? And that's what I think the main concern is. Not are we going to save the building? I know I spoke with. There's a comment on the board from Barbara Wayand, who represents the Falmouth Preservation Alliance. I think they've also expressed interest in the past about, artifacts. So if you could share, would you mind sharing the photos that you got, Caleb, with them? So if there's two groups that are looking to salvage, and see what's there that comes out of the building, then at least everyone's had a fair chance at, and then whatever's not taken or what's left is it is what it is. We're not going to.
That was, I'm sorry. Yes, Ed, that was my intent. Was
okay.
Try and broker the elements to
okay.
this historical society, other builders, architects that would be interested in incorporating historic elements, as long as they are noticed that it came from the Nimrod, that type of thing. So,
okay.
Really look forward to working with Pisno.
Okay. The last point I want to make about this whatever the placard is, or this memorial of the history of the building, or the history of what happened at the building, I should say. I want to be careful. I know that Leon had put a document saying that he had someone, a historian, doing some research, and they were going to put together some kind of narrative about what happened here, or what the history is that he wanted to include in this little piece that he's designed. And whatever the design is fine. I just want to make sure that what this historic narrative is accurate. So what I'd like to request, Kevin and Mick, is that I would like the Historical Society to review and approve whatever the narrative is that does go in there, to make sure that it's accurate. Because, and I only raise this because the Nimrod isn't an American ship. It was a British ship bombing, Falmouth at the time. So I want to make sure whatever the story is that we want to preserve is truly done correctly. So I'd like to put that included in our approval. And I'll get to you, Tom, is that the Historical Society does approve whatever the narrative is that's finally done, to make sure that it's 100% historically accurate. And they probably know how to do it.
Ed, we weren't going to do any narrative. We're given the structure. Our idea was, our idea was, hey, this is something you guys do the narrative. I don't know the history of it.
Well,
you people know the history of it.
Well, the impression was, what he sent to us was that he was going to have a historical researcher.
Yes, but it's not. It truly would be a historical researcher, not a. It's not a builder from Falmouth who's going to do the research. You understand?
No, but I'm saying I don't know I don't know again what's intended to go in that structure that's been built. Is there going to be a plaque of some kind that talks to what was there, or what the history is there? I don't know. I'm just saying, if there is something that's going to go there, I want to make sure that it's historically accurate. And I'd like, before it ever gets put up there, whatever it is, it gets maybe submitted to the Historical Commission, and then we can get it floated around to make sure it's accurate. That's all. I don't know what your intention is. I'm just going by what he wrote. Tom, did you have something?
Yes, if I may. I'm always a little leery when we start discussing content in a sign. That's a First Amendment sort of issue. We should not regulate content. We can regulate size, location of a sign, but content, not one of those things. There's a little dust up a few years ago here in Plymouth, where I live, about the wording on Coles Hill. So I would certainly steer away from regulating content of a sign.
Well, it's not
the other thing I just wanted to note. The other thing I wanted to note, and it's in the comments, and you sort of alluded to it, but we always like to make sure that whatever is in the chat gets sort of addressed at the meeting per the text, because that's the public comment. It's from Barbara. It said, Phil Nero, president of Falmouth Preservation Alliance, and I met months ago with Mike Lahart and Leon Pinsenall to 1, request an opportunity for salvage, and 2, opportunity to create a historic sign for the property. Where do those requests stand? So that's verbatim from the comment. Thank you.
Can you speak to that, Mick? the comment from Barbara Wayne?
Well, I did get a call from Phil Nero,
Yeah.
maybe, what day is today? Yeah, a few days ago.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, it hasn't been exactly the best time to go back and forth about everything because we're still trying to run a business. So shame on me for not getting back to me. Phil and I have a relationship going back 15 years. He knows that I will get back to him and that we will. That's the first thing. Second thing is, as I said, my background is historical restoration. We have no desire to tear something down. It just has to go because of the structure. Nothing would make me happier than to put something up that would commemorate what went on there. And that's, for what it's worth, I am actually certified or licensed by the state of Massachusetts for historical restoration, and it's something that I feel strongly about.
And can I understand? I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Christian.
Can I make a comment, Ed?
Yeah.
Our purview right now is whether or not they should be delayed for a year, and it's not really what goes back or what beyond what our purview is on this application is just whether or not we think they need to wait a year to tear it down.
Yeah.
I'm confident at this point that the applicant and the townspeople, whether it be Caleb or Barbara, can work together and figure out collaboratively what will be best to represent or to identify what was there. I don't think that's our at this point. I think we should be talking about this whether or not we're going to grant them this waiver, and I think that they've satisfied the question that we had at the last meeting, which was documenting and possibly salvaging some materials. I think we need to move this along, and I think that I'm confident that the town, that the people that the applicant and the people that are interested in what goes up as a symbol will work together. But I don't think it's for us to really. I think that's incumbent upon them.
We had a long conversation about this. I feel like the owner was willing to work with Caleb and interested people. He tried to get him in. What are we asking these questions about the sign? Is that because now we're going to say they can demolish it?
No. It's nothing to that. I'm only going by what Leon put in his narrative, that he was doing some kind of a historical research. That's all I'm going by. I don't care that there's anything there, to be honest with you.
Okay.
My suggestion
is time to move along.
My suggestion is we send a letter to Leon and ask him, from the historic district, and ask him to work with Barbara and with Caleb and anyone else that's interested.
That's all.
But
I just want to be sensitive to the group. There's a group out there that was very passionate about this for several years ago. I don't want a building getting torn down and then people think they lost something in the building. So if Caleb and Barbara and whoever's involved can certify that, you know what, whatever is really there is out, and if there's nothing there, there's nothing there. I don't want people coming back feeling like they lost something. That's my sensitivity. That's all I'm concerned about.
Yeah, I agree.
I was going to say, as a member of the original committee, I agree that the building needs to come down, but I would like to be in touch with Caleb and Mick and be involved in how the artifacts are saved. And I suggest that we just allow the building to go and talk about how we're going to preserve whatever we're going to preserve at a later date.
Well, that's going to be offline. There's people that are qualified and who have a vested interest in it, who we've identified. I think we know who they are. They know who they are. They're going to be involved, and I think we've done our due diligence.
I agree, and I think that I'm happy that Caleb is satisfied. He was certainly one of the very vocal, and the fact that he's been saying he agreed. I mean, everyone agrees it has to come down. So I
Yep.
think we're ready to make a decision on it.
So why don't you move forward, Christian?
So I'm going to make a motion that we approve the waiver of the demolition delay bylaw for this building. And that's my motion.
I second.
We take a vote. Annie,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Tara,
Yes.
Christian,
Yes.
Ed, yes. So approved.
Thank you very much.
You're all set.
Thank you.
And you'll be coordinating with Caleb, you'll be coordinating with Phil Nero and Lee, whoever wants to be involved with the after party, so.
Yeah,
So
and I would just
I have to deal with Caleb for the next 6 months. Is that what you're trying to say to me?
I would ask.
Maybe some other people.
I would ask that someone from whatever organization is put together that they come to one of our historic meetings and give us an informal update on, what was salvaged and what was documented, so that we have a level of comfort that was done.
Just go on record. That's a
That
great
sounds
point.
good.
That's a good point.
No problem.
Okay.
Thank you.
All
Thanks,
set.
guys.
There was one last item on the agenda, and I think it came up at the last meeting, and I didn't know what it was. So Christian, I'm going to ask you. There's an item called CP Fund. CP Fund.
That's you,
Annual-
Ed. That was your letter, I think.
Oh,
that you want
I
the
understand.
CPC committee to be able to support.
Okay, I now I understand what it is. Thank you. Now I know what it is. So I guess, Annie, can you give them an update that we discussed today?
Yeah, so the letter was presented at the CPC needs assessment meeting. And I say we are the only people that letter was the only advocacy for preservation, for funds to be directed there. So I was glad that Ed spearheaded that effort. There was a lot of support for affordable housing and support for public land. And those two causes have actually people who are employed to lobby for them. So it's just to make a note, there wasn't anyone to lobby for historic preservation at that meeting. So as you recall, the letter was asking them to consider whether or not private homeowners could receive CPC funds to maintain their properties. And I think that the CPC is open to that, but what they are asking is that we come to them with a proposal and the research necessary to then ask them to consider that a working group is not going to be by the CPC to look into it.
Okay. So I think it's something we'll talk about at a future meeting.
It was really important, Ed, to have a voice for historic preservation there, whatever it was, whatever that topic. So I really appreciated that very much.
Yeah, I think it's still an important concept. We can talk through it, at our own meetings, how we might approach that. Okay, I sorry, I didn't quite understand, but now I remember. Thanks, Christian. All right, that's our only agenda item. I think, do we have some approval of minutes that were sent out, the March 4th minutes? I'm not going to vote on it since I was not at that meeting. So I'll make a motion that we approve the March 4th minutes as presented. All in favor, Annie?
Aye.
Kara? You're muted. You're muted, Kara.
Aye.
Christian?
Aye.
Lee?
Aye.
And I'm abstaining. Okay, the minutes are approved. So that's our agenda. Our next meeting is June 2nd. I guess to be determined whether it's a live meeting or a virtual meeting again, and we will wait for guidance from Town Hall at that point. Correct, Tom?
Yes, we will. We are regularly monitoring the situation. We're talking with the Board of Health. We had quite a meeting today of what the future might hold, and we all decided we don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
Second is your regular scheduled meeting. If we got business to conduct, we'll queue it up because, as you know, you are a regulatory board and you have the people's business to conduct. Happy to help.
All right, great. So it's 7:29. I'll make a motion that we adjourn the meeting unless someone else has any other business to new business.
I like these virtual meetings. They go quicker.
I know.
I'll make a motion that we adjourn the meeting.
Forever.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Stay safe.